So-Called is sponsored by loveboiseparks.org, which donates profits to support, promote, and preserve open spaces in Boise, Idaho. Use promo code SOCALLED for 10% off all your purchases at loveboiseparks.org.
In a nonprofit, particularly, or a mission-driven organization, even if it's not a nonprofit, you really need the hearts and minds for what you're trying to accomplish, because you're not producing a widget; you're trying to advance a cause.
This is Mark Wojcik, and I'm wondering, how's your so-called career? Welcome to So-Called, the podcast that explores the why and how of work. On today's episode, we meet Jeff Vanek, Director of Human Resources at Utah's Hogle Zoo.
So when people think of a zoo, they think of animals, but there's people who work there and need care as well. So tell me a little bit about what you do in that role.
Sure. Yeah, so a lot of people, you're absolutely right, when they think of working at a zoo, they think of, I'd be working with the animals. I'd be one of the animal keepers. Although they are one of our largest departments, it takes a lot of different people to run a zoo, as you can imagine. So we're about a medium-sized zoo when it comes to zoos in the United States, in terms of both size and also in terms of employees. And so we have, just to give you an idea, we have about 110 full-time employees. And then during our busy season, that ramps up double that, easy.
Oh, okay.
And then on top of that, we have 400 plus active volunteers as well. So now we're not all here on the same day, obviously.
Yeah.
but that kind of gives you an idea of how many different people in the different roles.
Those roles include everything from animal keepers to ticket takers, facilities, food services, marketing, education, and more.
You have to have accountants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sadly for everyone, right? We have to.
Yeah. And since we do have employees, you've got to have human resource people.
Yeah. I guess in some ways like a city within the walls of the zoo.
Yeah, that's a great description, kind of like a little mini city within a city. That's been used before. And that's a good description.
A lot of people say where I work is a zoo, but you quite literally have that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Our culture is a zoo. Literally and figuratively.
When we met, I asked Jeff about his career path and how he ended up working at the zoo.
So I'll preface this with, I am one of those people who have had a long, winding, interesting career, never quite knowing what I wanted to be when I grow up, but knew that it needed to be interesting and it needed to speak to my soul, as it were.
Yeah.
And so the path to get to where I am now, and as I tell people, I'm in, I don't know, it's a toss-up between a job I had early in my career and the job I have now. What one is the best job of my career so far?
Okay.
And maybe it depends on the day and how I might feel that particular day, but this really, truly has just been one of the best jobs that I've ever had in my career.
One of Jeff's potential best jobs happened early in his career in a venture-funded startup where he was a contracts attorney in the early days of digital music.
So I was the guy, the lawyer with the business suit who was doing the contracts. I wasn't going to court. I was negotiating out these contracts to get the music from the record labels. I was negotiating with the retailers to sell through to them, and putting all that together. And it was just an extremely creative field, and it was also new and innovative. Nobody knew exactly how to do this or what it was going to look like, or how were rights going to get paid to the music owners and the publishers of the music. And what did it mean when you sent a file through all the system in a computer network to the internet? Was each one of those a copy or not? And should each one, mean that, there's a payment involved because technically it was a copy being made to a server and then from a server to somebody's computer, and all that was getting all worked out. So it was just so fun and fascinating. And I was working with creative people, as you can imagine, particularly in the technology side, they're very creative people, but also, the music side as well.
Yeah.
We're, working with the, mostly with the record labels, but, very creative, fun job. So that was the one that competes with the job I have now.
Okay.
And I'll explain why. So now I'm in this field here at the zoo, where once again, I'm with just a creative, smart people, curious people. I love being around people who are curious and want to learn more and are passionate about what they do and are, there's a cause. So our motto here at the zoo is, we're champions for wildlife. So we have a conservation mission. And, so we're out to save the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we take that seriously, and it means a lot. And that goes back to some things that were about me that just fit. So I tell people, I think I finally found my tribe. I think I finally found the people that I can hang with and really, enjoy being around and enjoy coming to work for. So I've got my cause. And back in the days when I was doing the music stuff, I had my cause. And I guess I'm just kind of I found myself over the years kind of a cause-oriented person. Then it was about, get digital music out to the world, not just commercially, but how do we define it, in all the different ways we need to define it and work out these problems so that we can have it's funny, we used to talk about the universal jukebox in the sky. And now the internet has become essentially that
very thing.
Yeah.
So how did Jeff get from digital music to the zoo? Eventually the dot-com bubble burst and the funding dried up, so he moved to Salt Lake City looking for work.
So I came here, I was looking for work, I was networking, and one of my neighbors knew I was looking for work, and I'm thinking, I'll go into I'll continue to be a lawyer, I'll continue to work in the legal field. And he said, well, we really need a director of human resources. It was a fairly large organization, about 300 employees, just under 300. And said, we're looking for a new human resources director because our current one has been out ill for a while and she's not going to be coming back. And you've got this law degree and we really want to kind of elevate the position from what it's been. And you'd be perfect. And I was like, I have zero experience in human resosos. And they said that you've got a law degree and you're a lawyer and that's good enough for us. And so being young and cocky, I said, you're right, I can do that. The money was right and I had a mortgage to pay. So. It's like, good.
It sounds
that
perfect.
worked. That worked. So it was an opportunity to learn a completely new field. Well, it turns out that I actually liked the field. And I found it was really interesting. I found that gave me a much broader opportunity in an organization than just to look at the legal issues, just to deal with contracts or something. I had to know the whole business. I had to know the people of the business. And I got to play in this area called company culture. And it was all fascinating. And so it was a nice place to land. It was a nice place to have a law degree, to come to it from being an attorney, and yet kind of open my eyes to wider possibilities and more involvement in how an organization functions and what it takes to make that organization work. So now here I am, fast forward again to, I'm in human resources in this real estate asset group, and we've got this piece of property, it's got environmental issues, and I'm thinking, ooh, wow, I wonder if I could convince them to let me go back to school. and actually, I really just wanted to scratch a science itch. I really just love the sciences. And but I thought there was a good angle there. Environmental issue, a lot of scientific issues that are related. I'd really like to scratch this itch. They've got an education reimbursement program. Let's see if I can make an argument.
Yeah.
So I did, and they accepted it.
Okay.
And so I went and got a master's in environmental science with an emphasis in sustainability.
Okay.
So, and initially it led nowhere, to be honest. It was
storybook ending. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like I've got the degree. My wife was wondering what the heck I was doing.
Yeah.
Going back and getting this other degree. This is definitely midlife, mid-career,
Mm-hmm.
And as I like to say, I guess instead of a red sports car, I figured a degree was was better. And so for several years, it was kind of that way. Then I'm working at a software company as a human resources, in a human resources position. And the aquarium here in town advertises that they need a director of human resources at the aquarium. And it was like, oh, opportunity has just opened up, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I applied, and then I got the job.
Yeah.
And then that led ultimately to the director of human resources here at the zoo. So finally those things came together in a way that really was just serendipitous, but also obviously there was some prep there for different reasons, right? It competes with the first job I talked about with the back in the .com days.
Mm-hmm.
But this job is just really satisfying, and it brings together a lot of things that, so my law degree, because I'm in human resources and all the different employment law issues that I have to deal with still.
In addition to his human resources work, Jeff finds fulfillment in writing.
So one of the things I'm finding more and more fulfilling is I consider myself always growing, and I hope that's the case, professionally, personally. So one of the things that I really have enjoyed, and it's always been on the side, and interestingly, it started back in that first job at the venture capital firm,
Mm-hmm.
was writing, and I'm a nonfiction writer. I've tried fiction, and I've tried fiction. Maybe we just leave it at that. Maybe we just leave it at that and like move on. But I found that I could really put ideas together well and bridge thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is one of the things that I really have enjoyed doing. And so I did write a book.
Okay.
And it was self-published,
Mm-hmm.
and it's done fairly well. The best things I can say about it is that it did win a statewide award for best
congrats.
nonfiction. So I'm not as I like to tell people, I'm not a best-selling author, but I am an award-winning author.
Yeah.
And I think somebody in the UK actually bought it once. So I'm an international award-winning author.
Jeff's international award-winning book is called Somehow I Thought I Would Be Taller, Finding the Courage You Need to Grow, and it's available on Amazon. Currently, Jeff is working on another book, this time about the need for a different kind of leadership in mission-driven organizations.
In a nonprofit, particularly, or a mission-driven organization, even if it's not a nonprofit, you really need the hearts and minds for what you're trying to accomplish. Because you're not producing a widget, you're trying to advance a cause. It's going to take millions of people who've decided to do some kind of action that changes the way we're doing things, whether it's in the environment or whether we're doing things socially.
Mm-hmm.
You need a leadership that can actually support that.
Yeah.
And so just having one person at the head and all dependent upon that leader to make it happen doesn't work. And that's really what servant leadership is about. Making sure that not only are those who you are leading are better off as a result of being led, but they themselves are capable of stepping into a leadership role as well. Now I'm really working on a book that makes the case and the argument that servant leadership is the right type of leadership and is uniquely suited for organizations that are mission driven, and are trying to address our environment. I really think there are strong ties between what servant leadership is and was conceived of. And if you look at the research and go deep, and what it means in terms of application in marrying it with like climate action and environmentalism. The two go together extremely well, and particularly when you're trying to create a culture that is going to drive those factors, that's going to support and drive. You've got to have leadership for sure. And it's important, I think, to think about the type of leadership as well. And so now I'm working on this book on the, why servant leadership for the environmental movement. I kind of thought going down the servant leadership route was a rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. And now I say, and I end up finding the rabbit. Unexpectedly, I ended up finding the rabbit in that rabbit hole.
Looking back on your career, what advice would you give your younger self?
Probably to relax and don't get so hung up about where I'm going, but rather, I guess the advice for to sum it up is don't be afraid to be your best self. Just embrace who you are, and then really work hard at being your best self in the service of others. Just be who you are, but always remember that once you're comfortable there, go out and see how you can help others based upon who you are and what you're interested in and what drives you.
So Called is sponsored by loveboiseparks.org, which donates profits to support, promote, and preserve open spaces in Boise, Idaho. Use promo code SOCALLED for 10% off all your purchases at loveboiseparks.org. Our theme and transition music was composed by Roberto Cavaco. All other stylings are the sound of my voice. If you enjoyed today's episode, please let us know. Subscribe and leave us a review. So Called is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and wherever you get your podcasts.